Good morning, everybody. Let's get started. One of my favorite times of the week is seeing all of you on Sunday morning. Welcome, welcome.
COVID-19 pandemic and its subsequent impact on the global economy, followed by the racial unrest that is now taking place and will have an effect on housing. Now, you hear a lot about the stock market and how it's up or it's down because of all these developments that we've experienced. But the stock market, look, it affects about 10% of all Americans and less than 2% of all of the people on earth. But you know what does affect all people? Housing. Because one way or another, we all need a roof over our heads. So, we thought this was the topic that we should drill down on. Joining us now, Jason Hartman, who knows housing, by the way, from the inside out. He's an extremely successful real estate investor who connects with thousands of people weekly on jasonhartman.com, where he shares some of his insight with others, and he's here to do it for us right now. All right, Jason, let's start with this. First, have these times that we've been going through with the economic situation, the pandemics, et cetera, have they caused home prices to go down?
Well, Rick, thanks for having me back. It's counterintuitive, but the exact opposite has occurred. Now, when we look at home prices and talk about this stuff, virtually all of the statistics any of us hear are national statistics. And as you know, the housing market in the country, like as large as the United States, obviously there are so many markets. It's a huge country, about 400 local markets, if you will, that can really be divided into three categories: linear, cyclical, and hybrid. So to answer your question, expensive housing markets were already suffering before the pandemic. There were already lots of stories about expensive properties in New York City, in Los Angeles, even in less expensive markets like Seattle, certainly San Francisco, South Florida, Miami area, Boston, Washington, D.C. to a lesser extent, because that's got the government that skews the stats. Those were already suffering before the pandemic. But interestingly, now we are seeing this mass migration out of high density areas, and the housing market, by and large, is up. There's very little inventory and lots of demand.
So let's call it the burbs, for lack of a better term, as we've always referred to it here in America. If you live in the
Hey,
suburbs,
Facebook listeners, I don't think you can hear this, but
keep it. Don't.
for some reason, the sound on Facebook is not working. Sound on YouTube is just fine. And if you're pushing the caption, then you can see what I'm saying. But I don't know why that's happening. Maybe it's working on some of the other pages. Anyway, stay tuned. I'm trying to fix it.
Sell it because the value you have in your home is pretty much the value you have right now as a person, right? I mean, monetarily, of course.
Yeah, the suburbs, I think those homes are going to do very well through this. Actually, I think if you own suburban properties now, keep them, because there is a tidal wave of people moving in your direction that want to be out of high density areas. They don't want to take mass transit. They don't want to get into elevators. And if you live in a condo complex that is in a suburban style city that is 4 stories or less, you're probably okay. But if you live in anything that's considered mid-rise, which is 5 stories and up, or high-rise, 12 stories and up, I would really be concerned about properties like that. And we're now already witnessing the second wave of infection. And you alluded to the racial strife and the riots, and that's just one more reason not to live in cities.
Let me ask you a question, though, because everything that you're saying, although conflictive with what we would think is going on, may make some sense if you consider that there's a lot of money out there. I mean, the government's been pouring money. One of the things it's done is something called forbearance, which I learned from you originally, by the way. which is where they will tell you you don't have to pay your mortgage for the next 3 months, 6 months, some even a year. Okay. So let's suppose that's the reason that everything is still stable and nothing has imploded or exploded. But what happens when that forbearance program ends? When the government stops the gravy train, so to speak? Is that when we'll see the problem?
Yeah, very good question. And the real answer is none of us know. None of us know, because the economy has a lot of challenges ahead. I mean, we still have massive unemployment. To use a phrase we've all become familiar with relating to the virus, the curve has flattened in terms of unemployment, right? But still, things are pretty sketchy out there. And these forbearance programs, it's still unclear, Rick, as to whether or not that's a layaway program, if there might be some forgiveness, or if it will just be tacked on to the back of the loan, or what the workout is going to be at the end of these forbearance periods that are 3, 6, or 12 months. This is what the government does. They always distort every market because they come in with aid and bailouts and stimulus, and it just distorts things, and it makes it hard for any of us to know what's really going on. So to some degree, it's definitely a guess, but I would say for sure, low-priced housing, necessity-oriented housing in suburban markets where people can socially distance, where they feel safe, where they're not in cities that are having riots and civil unrest, and they're not taking elevators and mass transit where they might catch a virus. Those are a pretty safe bet, because the other thing that's happened during this whole thing is everybody's really realized that the home is the center of the universe.
Yeah.
And since so many people are working at home now, they actually need a larger home. They need more space. So instead of living in that $4,000 a month, 600 square foot condo or apartment in New York City, for $1,500, they can get a 12 to 1,500 square foot suburban house with a yard and a 2-car garage in a nice community, and they're already working at home. So what's the difference if it's 10 miles away or 100 miles away or 1,000 miles away? It's all the same.
You tell it so well. Wow. Jason Hartman, a guy who's made millions and millions of dollars in real estate, and he started as a kid investing in real estate, and we're just so glad to be able to have him on to take us through these explanations, because they do make sense. We'll follow to see, and hopefully we'll be able to have a conversation again. Thanks so much, Jason. Always appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks, Rick.
Well, for Gina and I, my wife Gina and I, it's been really a game changer for us in our financial lives. We've been doing this since early 2016, and I've been listening to podcasts since probably February, March 2016, and the thing that remains constant throughout all of these podcasts, it's not just the great variety and the content is meaningful. It's that the fundamentals from real estate investing from 15, 20 years ago when Jason first started this, the fundamentals haven't changed really that much. They're very, very solid, which means you could be successful in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s with those great fundamentals of real estate investing, the 10 commandments, and all the great topics Jason talks about, and how to read a pro forma on those things, how to analyze a deal, all that stuff. It's constant, and if you follow that philosophy and really buy into it, there's nothing you can't accomplish in that. And my wife and I moved pretty fast in 2016, and we have the same properties that we bought through Jason then, and we still have those cash flowing properties today. They're making even more sense because some of them have appreciated quite a bit. I just got fortunate there, but the information is great. The support, Sarah and the team, is wonderful. There's obviously speed bumps and there's big bumps sometimes, and Sarah's been a magnificent help on some of those things. But looking at the big picture, I think Jason always encourages us to look at the big picture, because I wanted to panic sell in one of our markets once, and Jason just kind of got me level set and had me look at the big picture and long term, and I'm definitely feeling better about that. But anyway, it's been a great experience. I really encourage everyone to participate who wants to succeed in real estate, in investment properties. I'm looking forward to a long-lasting relationship, and my wife and I really loved it. And you guys are great, and looking forward to the next event. The Meet the Masters was fabulous, and we'll see you on the next turn.
What's nice about Jason Hartman's opportunity is that it's very well laid out. It's easy to understand. It's not just about the investment in real estate. It talks about the economy and how that's going to affect, future purchases. So it's just nice to get an overall picture as opposed to just, a realtor or a broker who's saying, here, this is what we have to offer.
And just get a lot of just general information on how the market's doing, and also more strategies in terms of what makes sense to invest in real estate. We've been doing it for 15 years.
So my name is Ross. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I actually met Jason at another conference nearly 2 years ago. Just this year, it came to the point where I thought, you know what? I need to start looking back into the real estate thing. I got a little bit of extra cash, and I need to figure out what to do with it, and delved real hard into the podcast. I probably listened to, the last 200 podcasts or something. Part of the things that I found the most interesting were regarding the Series LLC and how that was handled. Also getting into my first properties here soon, dealing with the transfer of a property into an LLC and how to handle that properly. It seems so far that it's really worth it. A little bit of a flight, but I'd say it's still worth it, especially with all the education stuff here. I'm looking forward to going to the Venture Alliance after this as well, getting some of that really close one-on-one time, talking to the people that are doing this, being successful at it. There's no downside to me right now, so I'd say totally do it.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Hey, everybody. Good morning to all. Good morning to all. How's everybody doing? So, first off, where are you located? Tell us where in the world you are. For the podcast, we have listeners in 189 countries worldwide. But when we live stream, it varies. It just really varies. It's different every single time. So we want to know where you're located. So comment down below. Let us know where you're located. And maybe more importantly, this week, let us know who you think's going to win and who is going to be our next president. Will it be a continuation of the Trump administration, or will it be the senile Joe Biden? I don't know. We'll see. Not that I have an opinion about this, but well, actually, I really don't know who's going to win. Yeah, I kind of think Trump is going to win. I think it's the same thing we experienced in 2016 with the polls and the mainstream media. They're out for their guy, and the mainstream media always leans to the left. That's just the way life is. And so they're trying to influence the election, of course, by saying, hey, Trump is way behind. Biden is going to win because, we want to have Kamala Harris as president in 2 months when Biden is taken out of office for whatever reason, because he has to be checked in as 2020 resident, or that would actually be 2021, but you know what I mean. So yes, tell us where you're located. We want to know where you're located. Where in the world are you? So on the podcast, we have yet to get some listeners from North Korea over here. We have yet to get some listeners from Cuba. And but we got most other countries covered. Not all of them. But where are you located? Comment. Let us know where you're located, and let us know who you think is going to be president elected on Tuesday. And by the way, I have to tell you, we were going to do an election night live stream, and I decided to postpone that to the next day. Why? Because I don't think we're going to know. I don't think we're going to know who is president. In fact, I wonder if we'll know the next day. We might not know for 3 weeks or a month, because this will be such a hotly contested election that no matter which side wins or loses, the Supreme Court will probably have to get involved, and we'll see. But yes. So here's another question I have for you. Comment down below and let me know if, well, I guess just put it this way. Let me know who you think's going to win, and tell us, do you think there will be more, not any, because there are already some. Do you think there will be more riots, more civil unrest due to the election specifically, due to the election results specifically? Now, it's interesting. You know, I don't know that Republicans will actually riot. I think Democrats will riot, but Republicans, they don't usually riot. They're too busy running businesses and running their lives. But we see a lot on the left. We see a lot of riots and civil unrest, and it's a shame what's happening in Philadelphia. And the media is almost hardly covering it anymore. I mean, there are just riots breaking out in cities all over the country, all over the world, really. This is a crazy time we're living in. It really is a crazy, crazy time. So be ready. And if you're not ready, listen to my holistic survival show. This is a show that I haven't, done as much with lately, but it's another podcast I had. It used to be my number 2 podcast after the Creating Wealth show, and it was all about protecting the people, places, and profits you care about in uncertain times. Now, those uncertain times were the times of the Great Recession 10, 12 years ago. Now we have newly uncertain times, don't we? We have very newly uncertain times. Anyway, thank you for all of you who commented that you can hear me. What I noticed about that is on my personal Facebook page where it's live streaming, the sound wasn't at least working on my device. Thank you, Matt and Lisa, for telling me, and uh, how do you say Leanne, for telling me that you can hear. Ultimate Bargains couldn't hear, so I don't know. Yeah, this is a mixed thing. Facebook's probably trying to sabotage me because it's a leftist conspiracy to keep the other side of the news out, right? But we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so let me know where you are, and I guess you can hear me now. So that's good to hear. So the news, as far as real estate goes, and really as far as the broader economy goes, is really pretty good. Certainly, there are a lot of people suffering. It is a very uneven time, but if you look at the number of seriously delinquent mortgages, it has fallen for the first time since the pandemic hit. This is a Housing Wire article, and taking data from Black Knight, one of the big data aggregators. Here is a mistake that a lot of the pundits make. A lot of the folks who are predicting the end of the world, who always seem to be wrong, whether they be Peter Schiff, Zero Hedge, the lamestream media, doesn't matter what, you hear these commentators all the time. And here is a big mistake they're making. You ready for this big mistake? Yep, they're making a big mistake. And here is the mistake. Let me just warn you about it so you can see through it and you can read between the lines and understand what is really going on. So, the big mistake they make is they look at statistics for the number of delinquent mortgages or the number of people in forbearance. Either one, I guess you could call that delinquent, but it's delinquent by agreement if they're in forbearance. And they say, wow, all of these people, like here in this article, 43,000 people. Now, keep in mind also, you have to slice and dice everything many ways. There are always many layers to the onion. You have to peel back the layers to the onion, right? And this data, although I don't even know if it says that here, may be only for agency loans, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans. Sometimes it's data only for FHA loans. Sometimes it's data for VA loans. Sometimes it's all of those. Sometimes it's all conventional mortgages, which the vast majority, of course, are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans. But whatever the case, okay, they take this number and they say, okay, The number of delinquent mortgages fell by 43,000, so that's good. There were 2.3 million homeowners, 5 times the number at the beginning of 2020, that remain 90 or more days past due. They're 90 or more days delinquent, right? And so they take that number and they go, oh my God, 2.3 million mortgages delinquent. And then they might add to it, and I don't know if this article counts forbearance or not. They might say, and then there's another 2 million in forbearance or whatever the number it is, doesn't matter, right? And then they'll say, wow, okay, so as soon as the moratoriums are lifted, then we're going to have all these foreclosures. We're going to have 4.3 million foreclosures, they'll say. But what they never realize, or they never say, is they never realize what happens on the way to foreclosure, right? It would be just like if you're reciting to your kid the story of the little piggies, right? This little piggy went to the market. Right? Okay, so on the way to the market, things happen. On the way to foreclosure, things happen, right? Many lenders won't start the foreclosure process. Remember, it's optional. It's their choice whether they want to start foreclosure. That's up to the lender. A lot of them will do workouts, loan modifications, short sales before foreclosure. Now, here is the big mistake people make on this. Get ready, get ready. It's a serious, serious mistake in their logic. During the Great Recession, we went into that with a massive oversupply of housing, which is extremely rare, by the way. We had this oversupply of housing, and we had very poorly underwritten mortgages, the liar's loans. You've heard all the stories, the ninja loans, no income, no verifications, say whatever you want. The janitor is living in a $900,000 house. I mean, there was no one putting the brakes on the mortgage underwriting process back then. So we went into it with all of that craziness, and we went into it with a whole bunch of adjustable rate loans. They were either 3-1 arms, meaning they got a teaser rate for 3 years, or they were 5-1 arms, meaning they got a teaser rate for 5 years and then they adjusted. And they were underwritten based on the original teaser payment, that artificially low mortgage payment. And so when those payments adjusted 3 or 5 years later, people got what they call payment shock. And then they thought, oh, wow, I can't even come close to affording this house. Why am I living in a $900,000 house when I make 50 grand a year, right? It's ridiculous. So they got payment shock, and then they stopped paying their mortgages. This time around, we hardly have any adjustable rate mortgages in the mortgage pool. We have very well underwritten mortgages. In fact, I would argue in many cases, the underwriting criteria has been far too tight where the banks have overcorrected. So it's a completely different set of circumstances. But here is the big one. Are you ready for the biggest part of this equation of all? Here it is. Here it is. Are you listening? During the Great Recession, all of that stuff I said notwithstanding, the thing that is different now, and I understand it's the famous last words of every investor, this time it's different. During the Great Recession, people were in a position where if they couldn't afford their home, they were forced to sell it, and they were selling into a declining market, into a market where there was a glut of inventory and people couldn't sell the properties. That is not the market we have now, not even close. Granted, it could change. I will be the first to say that. And I have no vested interest in being Pollyanna, being optimistic. I'll make money either way. Okay. I don't care. Well, I mean, I care, I guess, but, the great thing about income property, you just adjust your strategy, you make money either way. And the great thing about being in the income property business is you can make money either way. You just adjust your strategy, right? So be adaptable. So it doesn't matter too much to, my financial life, what happens, right? But I just think it really is different. people, we are in a very, I mean, not even very, we are in an extremely liquid market. You put your house on the market today and boom, it's gone, lickety split. So it's a completely different set of circumstances than before. Sorry to disappoint Peter Schiff, Zero Hedge, and everybody who is a vulture capitalist. And hey, I've got a little vulture capitalism left in me too, so I don't fault you for it. You know, I'm circling, waiting for the big foreclosure crisis to happen, so I can go and buy up everything. You know, I'm in the position where I could pounce, and I've got a lot of capital available to go and take those opportunities. But I don't know. You know, I could be wrong. That's my disclaimer. But at least with what we can see on the horizon right now, it just doesn't look like that's going to happen. Here is another big mistake the pundits make. Okay. This is the other big one. They say, well, soon the stimulus is going to end, and soon the forbearance is going to end, and soon the whatever bailout program or eviction moratorium or foreclosure moratorium. I mean, these are all very state by state, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, right? They say this is going to end. But what they don't think about, or what they don't tell you, and what they never say is they say, don't you think the politicians, whoever it is, whether it's Trump or Biden or, Gavin Newsom in the Socialist Republic of California, or, Cuomo or whomever, it doesn't matter who, right? Any politician. Don't you think that they always will want to ease the pain of the electorate, to make them happy, to please them, to dole out the goodies? Of course they will. Politicians, their whole career is built on buying votes. It doesn't matter if they're Democrats or Republicans, liberals, conservatives, they just buy votes. All right. They want the electorate to be happy. So now, the old saying is you can't please everybody all the time, right? And that's a fool's errand to try. But the fact is, there's going to be another bailout program. There's going to be another stimulus. There's going to be another something or other. It's like these pundits operate in a bubble where they think, oh well, these are the circumstances today, and those will be the exact same circumstances in the future, and the market will never react. It's like the stupidity of an absolute idiot like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is such a freaking idiot. It's unbelievable, right? Well, I mean, hey, Joe Biden's pretty stupid too, right? But whatever. Maybe Joe Biden isn't that stupid. He's just losing his mental faculties, right? Due to age, right? It's going to happen to all of us eventually, right? So that's the way it is. But and I feel sorry about that. But it doesn't mean you should be president and be the most powerful person in the world and have the launch codes for the nukes, which in time of need, God forbid you'd ever have to use them. You might forget the code. I mean, it's crazy that the Democrats have put up such a terrible candidate. I mean, I just can't even believe it. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, you can hate Trump and say he's a terrible candidate. Sure, I can understand. He offends a lot of people. I get it. Believe me. I mean, sometimes I think, why the heck did he say that? Trumpster, why did you say that crazy thing? You're gonna just piss everybody off. Don't do it. But whatever. He is what he is, right? We have what we have. What was I saying? Someone remind me in the comments. I got off on a little tangent there. What was I talking about? Let me see. Someone will remind me. See, when I do live events, it's great because someone will just shout out the answer. Bernie Sanders is an idiot. Thank you, Ultimate Bargains. I appreciate that. Yes. And by the way, once we're done with this election, as I said on the podcast the other day, when we're done with this election and all this craziness and everybody upset with each other and arguing and debating about everything, when we're done with this, please let's get on to something truly important. One of the biggest problems of humanity nowadays, especially in the United States, because it's most prevalent in the United States, one of the biggest problems of humanity is it's really leaf blowers. We've got to outlaw leaf blowers. Leaf blowers are the worst invention of the human race. I mean, I don't know. Is there any invention that is so widely used that is a worse invention than leaf blowers. It's like a machine of terrorism. All it does is blow around dust. It doesn't clean anything up. It just simply transfers the problem to somebody else, right? It's a transfer mechanism. That's what a leaf blower is. And you know those little engines on that gas-powered garden equipment? And hey, I'm hardly the biggest tree hugger and promoter of electric vehicles. Okay, I had two Teslas and I was thought they were completely overrated. I'm glad I got out of them. In fact, the last one I had was such a lemon, that Tesla Model X, that Tesla took it back and gave me a refund after complaining for 10 months. But they did. They finally did give me a refund on the car. I never got a refund on a car. Never tried before. I never had such a lemon as that damn Tesla Model X. That was a piece of junk. Anyway, really, Elon Musk, if he wants to help the world, not only could he give out his secret to getting all his hair back, but he could really just invent a whole line of electric powered gardening and landscape equipment, because those little engines put out more pollution. That little engine on a leaf blower pollutes more than the engine on a Ford F-150 truck. I mean, it's unbelievable how much pollution, because they have no emissions controls. There's no catalytic converter on those little gas powered engines and gardening equipment. So we have really got to solve this problem, folks. I'm not kidding you. It's a serious problem. It's serious. Yeah, we got to get away from gasoline powered lawn equipment and completely away from leaf blowers to leaf vacuum cleaners. Okay, Joel, thank you for the reminder. I knew it would come in if I got on another tangent. So yeah, another round of forbearance, another bailout. What makes people think that things will be like consistent? Oh, here's the Bernie Sanders connection. Bernie Sanders, moron, right? He always campaigned on this idea of let's just raise the minimum wage, and Joe Biden and communist Kamala Harris would say the same thing too. Raise the minimum wage. Listen, we have got this huge segment of the population that is the working poor, and I feel for them. It's absolutely ridiculous, the world we live in. We've got this like winner take all society. It's pretty messed up, okay, for a lot of reasons. And I entertain on the podcast both sides of these arguments from both sides of the aisle. You know that. In fact, I got a 1-star review a few weeks ago from someone claiming that I was glorifying Marxism because I interviewed the Marxist professor. But hey, I'm a Libra, fair and balanced. Okay. I want to hear both sides. And he was a pretty good interview, I got to admit. But I'm the least Marxist person you'll ever meet. Raise the minimum wage. Well, what do you do when you raise the minimum wage? You instantly cause all those businesses employing those people to employ fewer people and make the unemployment problem worse. And then you cause them to rush to automate. So the automated burger flipping machine becomes suddenly much more economical compared to the wages they have to pay. And then what else do? Well, you cause inflation, because that inflation trickles through the system. So every left-wing solution, quote unquote, is nothing more than a band-aid approach. It's hacking at the weeds, never the root. It's just a disaster. So none of this stuff ever works. But that's the same thing with the idea that there won't be another stimulus, another program, another forbearance, another moratorium, whatever. Okay. Now here's an update from Invitation Homes. Now, Invitation Homes is one of these big institutional investors that has like 80,000 homes. It's a huge number, rental homes, but compared to the overall market size, it's a drop in the bucket. Okay. We've never had a time until coming out of the Great Recession where the institutional investors have played such a large role in the market. So it is larger than it's ever been before. But in terms of the overall rental market, it's still very small. Can we hold those two seemingly opposing ideas in our head at the same time? I hope so. Let's listen to his comments because they're pretty bullish about what's going on. So check this out.
You have existing home sales sentiment at a record high. You have new home sales better. All of that data coming in stronger. How long can that last if DC can't pass another stimulus?
Well, it feels like we're certainly in a really good environment for housing, generally speaking. Interest rates being at really an all-time low, a lack of affordable supply in the marketplace, and a buyer that has proved pretty resilient through the summer. I think all of that is lending itself to an outperformance generally across U.S. housing. We're seeing the same thing in our business. At Invitation Homes, our occupancy is up over 100 basis points year over year. We're seeing homes lease a whole heck of a lot quicker, and it generally feels really, really healthy.
What's the supply outlook that you see?
Well, I think as you talk to most people within markets or at a national level, it feels like supply is generally really constrained. We're seeing somewhere between 2 and 4 months of supply in most markets where we operate. And I would say on average, most people consider a healthy market somewhere around 6 months. That hasn't precluded folks from buying and selling homes through the summer, through the pandemic. I do think a byproduct of this will be that our home buying and selling season may go deeper into the end of 2020 than you would typically see in a normal year.
I guess I just wonder who's doing all the buying, because when we get this good data, like how I mentioned home builder sentiment at a record high, and then you have delinquency rates for sort of the lower rated loans for those that maybe have weaker credit scores or don't have enough money to put down down payments, that's rising. Unemployment is rising. So how do we square these two things?
Well, it's a little bit of a couple of different things. The first is the first-time buyer is active. We're seeing that across FHA. You're right in that there is a bit of forbearance activity that has ticked up. It'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out. I think people are taking advantage of some of the forbearance opportunity that's been extended to them by the government. We'll see how that course corrects itself throughout the year. I think the second-time buyer, the third-time buyer, obviously very active in the marketplace. We've also seen a few sellers that have actually been pushing that off to later in the year. So there's kind of an interesting dynamic right now. It should play itself through, all being supported by historically low interest rates. And in that type of an environment, it's going to create velocity. It's going to create transactional activity. And we're certainly seeing it on our end.
Give me some sort of demographics here in terms of, say, moving out of cities into suburbs, out of rentals, say, in New York City and into the suburbs of Jersey. Like, that's a microcosm of what I'm talking about. But what are you noticing on that end?
Well, it's interesting. Our business is a great catalyst for capturing some of this data. We've seen through our summer surveys of new move-ins, almost 30% of our applicants are choosing a leasing lifestyle somewhere outside of a more urban area as part of their decision-making process. We're also seeing that in that 30%, 46% of those are looking for homes that have more space, meaning we're going from something that maybe is a little bit tighter, a little higher, density type of footprint into something that maybe is more detached, a yard, a little bit more space, perhaps a home office. I think that is going to be part of a new norm for the next year or two, and then we'll have to see if these trends stick out for a couple of years beyond that.
Are you noticing any landlords, like people going in to buy up these single family homes to then rent them out? How much of that is playing into this?
Well, across those nearly 6 million transactions that you mentioned earlier, Alex, a small portion of that is always going to be investors that are looking for opportunities to create affordable housing. We're seeing that activity really stay in line with where it's been the last 6-7 years since the last housing pandemic. I think what's interesting, if you look at housing as a whole, as a percentage of GDP, it's at nearly 22%. That's high. That's its highest percentage since 2005. It speaks to all different categories and types. So there's just generally a lot of activity happening because it's a favorable environment for folks right now.
Do you think that we're on a verge of any kind of eviction crisis from how you look at it?
I don't think so. I think you have pretty responsible actions taking place at the federal level right now from the forbearance perspective with the FHA stuff. You also have landlords. We've helped over 1,000 families in our portfolio today with some sort of modification or forbearance based on their current situation where there's a COVID-related pandemic. We're seeing our peers do that as well in the industry. I think over time, as vaccines come out, as things start to begin to normalize, you'll also see that many landlords are actually working with families that have been impacted. And in large part, if you look at the unemployment statistics, there's definitely a majority of those that are in the younger generation, which is perhaps, not necessarily in parts and segments of housing where you're going to see as much suffering or pain in that sector. And I think as long as we all do our part, make sure we step in and help people through this period of time, I think we can weather it.
All right, let's talk about your business as we round out here. So it's a twofold question. I mean, one, is this the time for you to do M&A since you are in the sweet spot for these trends? Or two, do you have companies coming to you and want to do more JVs?
All right, so you get the idea. We don't need to hear about Invitation Homes business. That's a somewhat controversial company. They have their share of complainers out there and so forth in terms of tenants and such. But I just wanted you to hear that update on the market, which was interesting. Uh, by the way, folks, okay, so I got a chance to read your comments as we were looking at the video for the Invitation Home CEO, and not enough of you have have told me who you're voting for, who you want to win the election, and things like that. So please comment with that information. And by the way, I know there's a lot of you watching right now on YouTube and on Facebook. So very few of you. And see, by the way, this might be the thing. I would assume that, and I think this is a fair assumption, more business-like people are, Republicans. They lean to the. Hang on a second. Oh, I want to show you this about Biden. I love watching these old videos. They're so great. They're so great. Who's that? Connie Chung, I think. I remember her when I was a kid, growing up in LA. But uh, uh, what was I saying here? Yes. Oh, the silent majority concept, right? Where so many will not speak. And I knew this was going on the last time around because the Trump voters are sick of hearing these arguments and being called a racist and all this absolute stupidity from people who have no critical thinking skills whatsoever and who want to squash free speech and freedom of expression and do not cherish democratic ideals. It's like that old Voltaire quote, right? Probably 200-year-old quote or something like that from Voltaire. Uh, I may disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And that's what we should all be thinking. Okay, it's fine to disagree and have debate, but let's not have this vilification, right? It's just absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, Trump voters, they'll go to the voting booth and they'll cast their vote, but they won't say it much publicly, right? Because they just don't want to be vilified. They don't want to argue about it. They're just sick of it. You can't talk any sense into the cancel culture. My mom went to Berkeley in the 60s, okay? And that's kind of amazing, right? And if you know my mom. And she told me about it. And she said, Berkeley in the 60s, people were walking around with copies of Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, Ayn Rand's books. So they were interestingly liberal and hippie-ish, but they were also open-minded enough. But now it's not like that at all, right? Now, if you get someone who wants to come and express an idea at a college, I mean, they're going to be canceled, vilified. There's going to be riots from idiots and losers. I mean, you just wonder: are these people going to grow up? What will the world be like in 20 years? These people have to grow up and actually run the world. So we'll see. We'll see. But hey, it's a product of the public school system and the university debt enslavement complex, right? And it's just absolutely ridiculous what's going on. But I see some of you coming in and saying who you're voting for or who you want to win. It could be either one or both. Who do you think will win, and then who you voting for, right? There's a difference there. Hopefully your candidate will win, but we'll see, maybe not. So I just thought this video was really interesting, and it's kind of amazing, when you watch these old videos and you look at how these candidates used to be. I'm sure you've watched many old Trump videos way before he was in politics. But I think he was always thinking he'd get into politics someday. But here's good old Joe Biden from the 1988 election.
Candidate Joseph Biden today faces a controversy. 3 weeks ago, at a debate at the Iowa State Fair, he used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife is sitting out there in the audience is the first in her family to ever go to college? Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university? My ancestors have worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania and have come up after 12 hours and play football. 8 hours underground and then come up and play football. It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand. There was no platform upon which they could stand. The notion that every thought or notion or idea, you'd have to go back.
I don't think Joe Biden is like one of my competitors. I have this competitor who's a total scumbag who steals every idea I have. In fact, he literally says the exact same words I say on the podcast. You know, I guess imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But it's like he and Joe Biden. Have they ever had an original idea in their life? You know, it's absolutely unbelievable. So, to be fair, let's let Biden defend himself. Let's listen in.
Can find and attribute to someone, I think is quite frankly ludicrous.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
You know, I was thinking on the way over here. Now that's a little too much because, as you point out, what's behind the words? What's there? And a lot of people, the rap on Biden has always been that it's just a surface.
I should have said, to paraphrase Neil Kinnock, it's the only time I didn't, and all the times I've ever used it.
But CBS News found a tape of a second instance.
It reappeared in the New York Times with a new charge that Biden had appropriated a famous litany from the late Robert Kennedy about what the gross national product cannot measure.
It cannot measure the health of our children,
The health of our children,
the quality of our education,
the quality of their education,
the joy of their play.
or the joy of their play.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit. He has also quoted or paraphrased John Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, all without credit.
Joseph Biden admitted today that he committed plagiarism when he was in law school. He said it was a mistake, but that it was unintentional.
He quoted pages of someone else's work without proper citation.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
He was given an F.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
To the political community in Washington, it all seems of a piece. Plagiarism at law school, plagiarism on the stump.
The great communicator. Strike that. The great imitator.
You don't steal verbatim, or when you do, as he did 99% of the time, you give credit.
Biden's critics say he sells himself as a man whose words and visions can inspire a new generation in politics. But if the thoughts, phrases, and visions really belong to others, it's a form of false advertising.
Is it a wise idea, though, to take something that personal, anyway, from another politician and try and appropriate it to your own campaign?
I think it was a stupid thing to appropriate material that was really very personal, that was someone else's.
Most people didn't know who he was, Joe Biden, and now they're going to say, oh, yeah, he's the guy who plagiarized.
That's a lot of people.
Politically, that's devastating.
These clips are devastating. He looks like a Joe Biden wind-up doll with somebody else's words coming out.
If they're going to do things that are stupid as well as immoral, then they're probably too dumb to have the job of president.
The voters are going to have to decide whether he was dishonest or dumb.
Senator Joseph Biden may have more explaining to do.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and, in fact, ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now, Biden says Newsweek is right.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't have to continue with that. You can just look it up yourself. That's a YouTube video, Joe Biden's lies are legendary, and there you go. Hey, but the one thing we can agree on probably, I mean, Joe Biden kept saying during, as his response to that, I've done dumb things. I'm going to do dumb things. I'm dumb, dumb, dumb. He's still dumb. That I'll give you. Okay, he's definitely still an idiot, no question about that. But here's another thing, right? And by the way, we're obviously talking more political today because we have an election in a couple of days. So the show won't always be that. Oh, you know what? Just look up the video, Dan. I see your comment there. The name of the video, all you have to do is just go to YouTube. Joe Biden's lies are legendary, and you'll find it. Okay, I can't drop it in because I can't do that easily right now. But I'll try to remember to do that afterwards, though. But just look up Joe Biden's lies are legendary, and you'll find the video. Okay. There we go. But another thing that's interesting is, I've talked a lot in real estate investing about the use of debt. I like to say debt is my favorite four-letter word. And of course, when I say that, I don't mean consumer debt. I don't mean bad debt. I only mean good debt. And of course, the amateur real estate investor knows that, the amateur, I'll say the amateur, the mid-level, and then the high-level real estate investor. We'll do a spectrum here, right? So the amateur real estate investor says, I want to pay off my mortgages. I want to use my cash and pay down the mortgage. And the whole idea of real estate investing is so I can own my properties free and clear. That's a very amateurish view, right? Because there are so many advantages to not paying them off, right? And then the mid-level investor will say something along the lines, well, I want those mortgages because I like leverage, because leverage helps amplify my ROI, or return on investment. Okay. Now, Trump is our first real estate president, at least in the modern era. There may be someone from a long time ago that I don't know about. But Trump is the richest president we've had, love him or hate him. He's also a real estate guy. So there are some good lessons here. And, I had shared some Trump quotes and techniques and ideas on podcasts 12, 15 years ago. Okay. If you go listen to my back catalog and hear some of those old podcast episodes I did, I was talking about Trump. Okay. I read his book, The Art of the Deal, when I was 24 years old. So that was like 5 years ago. Just kidding. That was a very influential book to me. Okay. It really helped me think bigger about real estate investing and more creatively about the things you could do. So even though half the country loves Trump and half the country hates Trump, just understand you can still learn some things about real estate investing from this guy. He's done a lot of stuff. He's been through a lot of crap. He's had bankruptcy. He's had a lot of dealings you can learn from. Okay, and he's earned his stripes on that kind of stuff. So one of the things I shared was from one of his books years ago on the show, talking about how he was so in debt. And so, again, the amateur real estate investor, pay off the mortgages. The mid-level investor, I like the leverage because it amplifies my return. If the property goes up in value by 6% and I've only got 10% equity, my return on investment is amplified, where I'm really getting a 60% return on that appreciation. That's leverage. And the advanced real estate investor understands that there's leverage, like the mid-level person does, but they also understand the technique I teach, and this is my trademark term on this: inflation-induced debt destruction. I know it's a mouthful, but it's so important, where inflation basically pays off your mortgage for you as your tenant does. Inflation and tenant pays it off, and that amplifies that return on investment much more dramatically. So a lot of people lately, of course, the stupid left-wing media, I mean, the New York Times, like that whole thing on his tax returns, it was so stupid and ridiculous. like grade school stupidity from the New York Times, of course, because the New York Times has made no bones about it. They have an agenda. They're not journalists. They're just a shill for the Democrats. Okay, that's the New York Times. That's most of the media we live in nowadays. It's social media too. It's big tech. It's I like to say that you know it's nice to have enough money to afford the luxury of being liberal, to afford the luxury of being a leftist, because the people who are the hardworking business people, uh, you know, that are working very hard at their job or their business to try and keep their business afloat and grow it and employ people, those people tend to vote to the right. Okay. And the folks that just have tons of money rolling in all these like lopsided businesses that are funded by venture capitalists, and many of them have never turned a profit and never will. They have no path to profitability. Now, I get that some of them are profitable, but wherever the money flows easily, people tend to be liberal. They tend to be leftist. Where the money is harder to earn, where they're earning their stripes, they tend to be more conservative. They tend to vote to the right. Okay. That's just the way it is. So you look at Hollywood where the money flows easily. You look at big tech where the money flows easily. And you're going to see, and the media, I mean, hugely wealthy networks, the old networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, right? And now CNN and so forth, right? They tend to be to the left, right? Because the money flows easily. They've got big, giant budgets, and they don't understand the struggle, right? They're not down with the struggle, right? Like most people in what Hillary Clinton calls the flyover states. So the media has made this ridiculously big deal out of Trump's taxes. All he was doing is being a good real estate investor and taking his passive loss deductions. You get depreciation deductions. I've taught you a million times. It's the best tax benefit in the world is depreciation because it's a phantom write-off, a non-cash write-off. And then lately, they've complained about all the debt he has. Is he really broke? They say they're just idiots. It's so stupid. So here is Forbes is not as left leaning, but they're still pretty left, believe it or not. Even Forbes. Okay. So here is a little bit more on the spectrum, a little more bit more balanced opinion about that. So let's listen to what Forbes says about Trump's debt. Is he broke? Is he so in debt? Gosh, maybe he's lying.
In September, the New York Times published a story showing that President Donald Trump only paid $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017, respectively. This shocking total led many people to ask, so is Donald Trump actually rich?
The answer is most definitely yes, he is still a billionaire. Donald Trump does owe a tremendous amount of money. If you add it all up, it's about $1.1 billion, which is a ton of money to owe, even if you're really rich. But he also has an enormous amount of assets.
Calculating net worth is actually a pretty simple equation. You subtract a person's debt from their assets.
If you tally all of those up, they get to $3.66 billion. So it's just subtraction from there. 3.66 minus 1.1, his net worth right now is $2.5 billion.
The real trouble is how to...
Can you believe that someone even needs to explain how to calculate net worth? That the New York Times would so misrepresent that concept? I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. It's unbelievable. And the idiots that are out there that just like no critical thinking skills, they're like, oh, Trump's $1.1 billion in debt. He must be broke. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And the New York Times, shame on them for perpetuating this myth. It's absolutely stupid. It's just unbelievable.
Value the different assets a person has. There are different ways of valuing, say, real estate versus the value of shares in a company someone holds. In Trump's case, much of his value is held in the property that he owns, and a key way of finding out the value of commercial real estate is to look at net operating income, or how profitable the real estate is.
So, for example, if you look at 40 Wall Street, which is Trump's skyscraper down in the financial district in New York, so the net operating income of that building is about $18.1 million. So you take that $18.1 million. And then what we do to figure out the value is we call up a bunch of people who buy and sell real estate in New York City all day long, all year long. So for this particular example, we called up 8 different people and we asked those people, now what's the multiple that you might expect for a building like this on that profitability to then determine what the value is? And they come up with, slightly different numbers, so you get a range. They were suggesting that the net operating income should be about 5.4% of the total value of the building. Now, if you do the math on that, with $18.1 million, and that suggests that the value of the building should be about $366 million.
But that's not the only way of looking at a building's value. You can also look at the cost per square foot. Let's look at Dan's example of 40 Wall Street. That building is about 1.165 million square feet. Going around to experts again, the average response of how much a building like that would be worth was around $400 per square foot.
Hey, so do you see the real estate lessons you're learning in now? There are 3 ways to value a piece of real estate. The cost approach, that's this one, the cost per square foot. How much would it cost to rebuild it, right? And then there is the income approach. That's the first one they mentioned. Okay, so net operating income, or NOI, times a multiple will give you a valuation. That's commercial real estate is valued based on NOI, net operating income. And then the cost approach. And then, of course, what's the third one, folks? Come on, you know it. You know it. Yes, it is the comparison approach, where your residential property is valued by comps comparison. So if the house you're buying, if it's worth $150,000 and it's going to make a good rental property, and there are a couple houses in the neighborhood that sold for around $150,000, then there's your value, right? Comparison, cost, and income approaches. So see, you learn a lot about income property just looking at some of this political stuff, right?
This puts 40 Wall Street at a value of $466 million, a different number than when we calculate the cost using net operating income.
And here's where it gets to be a little bit of an art in addition to the science and math of it. And you have to figure out, all right, well, how are we going to blend those things together? And in this case, one of those methodologies isn't clearly right or wrong. They just come to slightly different numbers. And so what we chose to do here is to just average them. And so that means that the estimated value of that building is $401 million. If you march through Trump's portfolio and you look at all of his buildings, his golf courses, you can add all of that up, and then you get the total value of all of his assets. If you go through everything, that total value adds up to about $3.66 billion.
So Trump really is wealthy. But how do you get away with paying only $750 in income taxes? The answer lies in the difference between net operating income and taxable income, or how much income an individual declares as taxable after a number of deductions.
For example, it calculates how much interest you're paying on that property, and so you would subtract that from the net operating income. So if you have a lot of debt against the property, then all of a sudden your net operating income shrinks a lot. If you have invested a bunch of money into a particular property, then that would then shrink what your income would be from that net operating income, getting closer down to the taxable income.
There are also more aggressive accounting tricks one can play to decrease what they owe.
For instance, it looks like Ivanka Trump was both serving as an employee of the Trump Organization while also collecting consulting fees from the Trump Organization. And that would allow then Donald Trump to write off those consulting fees and therefore make his taxable income look even smaller. So every business person is going to take a net operating income and shrink it down for their taxable income. What was so astonishing about this report is just the level that it happened, and the fact that these are enormous operating profits across Trump's portfolio, and they're real profits. We can see it. It's documented in SEC documents. I mean, 1290 Avenue of the Americas, Trump owns a 30% stake in that. That 30% stake alone is generating more than $20 million of net operating income per year. Same with 555 California Street in San Francisco. 40 Wall Street in downtown New York $18.1 million of net operating income per year. Trump Tower in New York City, more than $13 million of net operating income per year. So that's real money. And yes, he's got a lot of debt, much of which is coming due, but he does have a way out here. But it's going to require some moves that would be typical for a normal businessman, but present serious conflicts of interest for the president of the United States. One option is that he goes onto Wall Street and asks banks that his administration is regulating and investigating for hundreds of millions of dollars. Another option is that he sells off very valuable assets and then welcomes anybody who wants to put hundreds of millions of dollars into his personal portfolio. Neither of those things, again, would be unusual for a standard businessman, but nothing about doing business with the president of the United States is standard. And so then you run into large questions about conflicts of interest.
Yeah, he could just talk to Joe Biden about that. Talk about conflicts of interest, right? Oh, good old Joe. Maybe Joe can bring his family and they can talk about the conflict of interest issue, right? So, pretty interesting stuff. Pretty interesting stuff. Okay, some good comments here, comments and questions. Thank you for these. Let's address some of those. So, ultimate bargains, of course, you're saying bailouts are merely painkillers. Here, I'll put it on the screen. Bailouts are merely painkillers. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Look at, I haven't been focusing that much on my philosophical ideological thing. Of course I agree with you. Yes, they're just temporary quick fixes. They don't solve the problem. Yes, the central banks are counterfeiting money all over the world, but that's the world we live in. It's just the way it is. Okay. And then you say the size of the bailout is proportional to the size of the political campaign contribution. Yeah, probably true. Bernie Sanders is an idiot. Yes, I didn't sugarcoat it. Actually, he's a total freaking idiot. I'd like to actually use a stronger word, but this is a family friendly show. And Joel says another round of forbearance, etc. Yeah, it's coming. There's another something coming. We don't know exactly what flavor it'll be, what special interest it will, special interest group it will appeal to, but it's coming. Those who own assets, the haves as opposed to the have-nots, want to see asset prices inflated. That helps reinforce the divide. Yeah, sadly, that's true. That's the world we live in. And that's why, look at, I agree with Sunshine Girl from Australia. You're a regular viewer, so thanks for joining us every single time. We love hearing from you. And I agree with you. But the only thing you can do is it's like the old saying, don't curse the darkness, light a candle. And the only candle you can light is the candle to brighten your corner of the world. So buy some assets, okay? And you can find a lot of those assets at jasonhartman.com in the properties section. Shameless self-promoter. Okay. Yes, again, that's jasonhartman.com. Click on properties and you'll find some good assets to buy. Okay, they're already electric blowers. Yes, Rob, I know that, but they're not widely used. And the reason they're not widely used, they're probably more expensive and the batteries don't last long enough or they're not as powerful or whatever. But yes, we electric blowers would be the first step, electric leaf blowers, but electrify all gardening equipment because they just pollute and they're noisy and it's ridiculous. But leaf blowers in general shouldn't even exist. There should only be leaf vacuum cleaners. But that would entail too much work. See, the people using the leaf blower can just blow the stuff onto somebody else's property instead of picking it up. Why isn't that considered? By the way, and I have explained this before, in the world of economics, there's this concept called externalities. Externalities. So, for example, when a business manufactures something and they dump their toxic waste into a river and they pollute the river or they pollute the air, that's an externality. That's a cost that business doesn't incur themselves, but it's pushed onto the external environment, onto society. So, why is it not considered that leaf blowers cause externalities? All they do is blow the stuff onto someone else's property or somewhere else on the property where it doesn't bother people as much. How is that legal? That should be illegal. Let's outlaw it. Okay. And here's a libertarian, yours truly, saying, we need another law. I know that sounds hypocritical, but it's the world we live in. We wouldn't need another law if people would just be good citizens. But we have what we have. we don't have good citizens very much. We have a few. The people viewing this are good citizens, but not the world at large. Okay, folks, scrolling across the bottom of the screen, our asset protection webinar, newly revised for you. If you haven't watched it yet, check that out at jasonhartman.com/protect. If you need a corporation, an LLC, a trust, or a FLP, what's an FLP? It's a family limited partnership. These vehicles, these entities can help plan your estate, reduce your tax liability, and protect your assets. So get this done, take care of business. Check out that webinar. It's very educational. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long. jasonhartman.com/protect. Make sure you check out that webinar. We have had such good comments on that webinar. It has been just very, very well received. Okay, so, and thank you all for subscribing to the YouTube channel. We're at almost 11,000 subscribers now. I know in the world of YouTube, that's small potatoes, but hey, we've only been focusing on YouTube for a short time. And thank you for subscribing and liking and ringing the bell so you get the notifications, especially those impromptu live streams. This one is scheduled, but many of them are impromptu where I'll just decide, hey, let's go live and talk about something. I'll probably do that on Tuesday on election day. But again, since we don't know, and we're probably not going to know that day who is going to win the biggest race, the president, we're going to do that the next day, and we're going to do a recap the next day. So let me tell you the schedule for that. So on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern time, of course, those are the U.S. Eastern and Pacific times, we will go live with a live stream to recap the election. We may not even know who's president by then, the day after, but maybe we will. And maybe we'll know who's president, and then all the lawsuits will be filed, and the Supreme Court will have to decide, like they did with Al Gore, right? So we'll see that. But thanks for supporting the YouTube channel. Appreciate it. Okay, this is an interesting article. Is CRE, meaning commercial real estate, ready for the great American move to the burbs, the suburbs, right? So I was the first one to predict this back in February, that there would be this mass migration to the suburbs. That prediction has definitely come true with a vengeance. It's a huge trend. And it's interesting to see how companies are repositioning their office space on this hub and spoke model, and moving offices to the suburbs, opening up small office centers in the burbs, because that's where their employees are moving to. And this obviously makes for a big downtrend, a big concern for commercial real estate in expensive, overpriced cities, left-leaning cities, Democrat-controlled cities, aka disastrous cities. It's all the same thing. It's like a synonym. You know that everywhere the left goes, they will ruin it. They ruined Detroit, that used to be one of the flagship cities of the entire world. They ruined Los Angeles, my hometown. They ruined San Francisco. They ruined Seattle. They ruined New York. Yep, that's what happens. Anywhere the left goes and the left is in control, they ruin it. So there you go. They ruined the whole state of California. All right. So yep, they'll continue to ruin things. So this one, let me cover this later because it's too much of a divergence in topics. But maybe next week we'll cover this and we'll talk about MMT, modern monetary theory. We've talked about that before, a very popular concept nowadays. But Nassim Nicholas Taleb, one of my favorite authors, he wrote The Black Swan, and my favorite book of his is Skin in the Game. Fantastic book. There's your book recommendation for today. You must read or get the audio for Skin in the Game by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He is so brilliant, and you really got to get that book. Oh, shoot. Can't cover that because I didn't get the formatting yet. Okay, so this one, another Redfin survey. By the way, we got to talk about that big, huge Redfin lawsuit, which is kind of a crazy lawsuit. I don't know. Maybe it's not. We'll get your opinion. We'll talk about that one next week, I think. But it's maybe a landmark lawsuit, a giant suit filed against Redfin. We'll see how they do in that. I think it's sort of ridiculous, and I think Redfin is, just going to sadly have to pay a lot of legal expenses to defend something that may well be bogus. But again, We're in the preliminary stages, so I could be wrong. That's always my disclaimer. Remember Dennis Miller, the comedian? He would go on this big rant a long time ago, and he'd say this and that, and then said at the end, but I could be wrong. He's so funny. And he was a massive liberal, by the way. And then he just changed sides, and he woke up and and moved to the right side of the political spectrum. So that's Dennis Miller. But funny guy, really super intelligent guy, very interesting. But look at this survey, right? This is a 4-week rolling average of median sale prices for sold properties. Okay. Whenever you see these stats, you got to understand what it's for. Is it pending home sales? Is it sold? Is it listed inventory but not sold? So there, again, are so many ways to slice and dice everything, right? But just compare this. Look at this year over year comparison, right? 2018 down here. Okay, you can see through the year the things change, right, through the year. And this is what happened in 2018. Then you look at 2019, things were higher, right? But look at 2020, almost a hockey stick, not quite, but a massive increase, 15% year over year increase in median home sale prices. So these are sold properties. That's the most important metric, the sold properties, not the pendings, not the listed, but the sold. Sold is the number one most important thing. So you can see again one more indicator that the market is just en fuego. It's on fire. Okay, so not going to go over this. I'll get to that next time. Oh, now we'll do that one on feminism another time. It's the reset. We don't have time for that. What I want to find is one that's really good here for you. No, we're going to talk about Mises and yes, why can't I find that? Okay, hang on a second, folks. Let me look for this one that I want to share with you because it's really good. And no, the wealth tax. No, we won't do the woke liberals. I don't know. The woke liberals are pretty good. That's a pretty good one. Okay, hang on. Oh, the Marshall Plan. Gosh, I have all this stuff prepared for you. Oh, this is funny. Johnny Carson. Listen to this one.
Now, on the political scene, one of the Democratic candidates is Senator Joseph Biden. Have you seen the problem he's been having? He went around and made a speech. And apparently, he quoted I think it was a British politician, took his speech and kind of paraphrased it as his own. And then the press got on him. And then he was charged also with taking part of Bobby Kennedy's speeches. And Biden says, not to worry, he reassured his staff. He said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself.
Johnny Carson was the greatest, man. He was so funny. What a funny guy. Anyway, that ties in with the other Bidenism. Okay, let me see if I can find this for you because I definitely want to show you this one thing here. So let me look for it. But we got to get to some of your comments. So hang on a second here, folks. It's hard to do 10 things at once. I got to find this one video because it is a good one. There's the red fin. You know what's interesting too? Look at this. Look at this one. This is all the good old wars, right? Look at this. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. The left says they want peace, right? But you look at all these other past presidents and all their stupid, costly wars, all the deaths, all the destruction, and you look at Trump, 0 wars, no wars, right? And this is another reason he's hated by so many because, like I've said for years and years, is central banks and the military industrial complex, they make money off of both sides of the war, right? They make money off of both sides. The central banks throughout history, they have financed both sides of the war, right? They make money either way, but they want more war because more war is more profit for them. All the defense contractors, the military industrial complex, it's it's absolutely shocking, right? And you look back to the Kennedy assassination, and his statements in the 60s about getting rid of the Federal Reserve, about getting out of Vietnam, about all of this stuff, right? And there's a lot of vested interests, a lot of iron triangles that profit billions, if not trillions of dollars off of this stuff. And I mean, the most amazing thing is Obama, right? I mean, he was like a total warmonger, and the liberal media gave him a pass. Remember all those drone strikes and all those people that died under Obama, all these innocent people, the collateral damage. But look at the Republicans too, all the prior Republicans and all their wars. Absolutely shocking. Trump, zero, zip, nada. Look at all the money we've saved. So just have to point that one out, folks. Have to point that one out. All right. Let's see here. Let me see. I gotta find this one video. Where did it go? I had it all ready for you. Let me see if I can find this, because I really do want to share it with you. This is when a co-host would be handy, because they could be talking right now. Well, I find this video for you that I thought I had all queued up. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, where did it go? Here it is. Okay. Okay, it'll be back in a second. Let's do some comments. Yes, we know already electric leaf blowers. Yes, the K-shaped recovery. We talked about that before, and that is the very uneven K-shaped recovery that we've been enduring. And again, some people sadly are on the wrong side of that and really struggling, and others are doing quite well in this current times. And you're just talking to each other there. We have an FU-shaped recovery. Yeah, well, that's kind of true. And I don't know what the wash hands thing is, but okay. This is some of you talking to each other, right? The only way to expose Marxism is for its 100% abject failure to let the Marxists speak. Yeah, I mean, look, that's responsible for the deaths of like what, 150 million people in the last century. Marxism, big government, central planning in general, absolute disaster wherever it's tried. I like to say that socialism and its ugly big brother communism have failed at every time in history and every place on earth. There is not one example of success of this big intrusive government central planning. Nowhere. There's just no example. Now I know I hear what everybody's saying. I hear what the lefties are saying. Oh, but look at Scandinavia. Look at the Scandinavian countries. No, folks, I've busted that myth on my show. I interviewed several experts on that. The author, can't think of his name right now, a Scandinavian guy. I think he's from Norway, possibly, or Sweden. And he bursted that bubble, okay, that myth of Scandinavian success. And what makes you think those countries aren't capitalist? They're totally capitalist countries. They're just really rich, countries with very little impact until recently of immigration, total different set of circumstances. And they can afford a bunch of handouts because Norway's got so much oil money. So these just aren't comparable, right? And they're not socialism. Okay, so Ivana says stupid extremism on both sides. Yeah, I agree with you. That's true. Okay, people want to put their money in bricks and mortar and other tangible assets. Absolutely. That's why you should be investing in income property, the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. Okay. Should I be? Yeah. Well, look, the system is corrupt on both sides. Okay, but you can only get an incremental improvement. We're always left with the lesser of two evils choice. So the lesser of two evils choice, it is what it is. All right. And here is what it is, by the way. So let's blow this up. You folks, we've been going for a while. It's time to get up and just have a little fun here. Maybe we got to dance a little bit. You ready? Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, here we go.
And we will make America great again. Thank you, Ohio. Get out and vote. Thank you, Florida. Thank you, Florida.
They redid the song. It's so funny.
Everybody sing M-A-G-A. Shout it out loud. That's why when it comes time to vote, just remember we're all in the same boat. We're together. We're united, folks, and we won't let them divide us now and walk away from the hate. We're all human, and we don't segregate, just like women. I'll make America great. We are all in this together. Everybody sing M-A-G-A. M-A-G-A. Black, white, and brown from every city and town. We don't let haters keep us down. M-A-G-A. M-A-G-A. The American crowd, patriotic and proud. Shout it out loud. M-A-G-A. M-A-G-A. Let them hear our voice, all you girls and boys. Stand up and make some noise. M-A-G-A. M-A-G-A. The American crowd, patriotic and proud. Shout it out loud. M-A-G-A. M-A-G-A.
Okay, folks. So now I have totally cemented that exactly half of the population hates me. All right. Well, that's the way it is. So, so you got to just ask yourself though, how is it that I mean, you look at Joe Biden rallies, they're like non-existent almost. There's nothing. And you look at these Trump rallies with tens of thousands of people. It's absolutely staggering. How is it that Biden is ahead in the polls? How, I don't know. It's sort of like you look at here is reality and here is a fantasy the media is trying to promote, and uh, maybe that fantasy will win because of their promotion, or maybe it will win because of voter fraud. I don't know, but it just it just give it the sniff test, right? Like, look at all of the support for Trump. I know, it's like half and half, but it would seem like the winning candidate is chosen for us here. But we'll see, folks. We'll see. Hang on. No, stop. Didn't mean to do that. Okay, so let's just go back here. Let's get some questions. There are so many comments. Wow. Thank you all for keeping these coming. I hope I have time to get to all of them. Gosh, there's tons of things here. I'm going to just go through these fast here. Okay, so Nancy Cat. Winner, Morgan. And you're going to vote for Trump. All right, sounds good. Okay, have a plan B. There are plenty of countries that respect private property rights, your homeland. Yeah, I agree with that. But you know what? I still think the US is the best. I've been to 87 countries. I've seriously thought about, listen, I was born in Europe, okay? I'm no stranger to the idea of, I've thought about moving to Europe just for a summer and trying it out. Or South America. I've thought of, Chile is really kind of a desirable for the moment, but none of it lasts. It's The U.S. is really enduring. These countries, every 10 years, they got a new crisis going on, and their economies collapse every 10 years. It seems like a lot of them. So I still think the good old U.S. is the best, and even when advanced countries are doing well, they're just not as modern or abundant as the US. I still like the good old US of A the best, but who knows? That might change. Olaf says, "Thanks, Jason. I got laid off recently, but have about 150,000 in the bank and would like to purchase a house and get a mortgage. Do you think any banks will lend to me?" Olaf, unless you have other income, remember, it's not about assets, it's about income. You got to have income because the lender looks at income as your ability to repay the mortgage. So, unfortunately, unless you've got other income that can qualify for that mortgage, and you didn't say in your message here, your question, if this was a rental property you wanted to buy or a home for yourself. But they're going to want income. So go get yourself another job, or better yet, use this as a time to start that business you always wanted to start, and immediately to curtail any decline in income. Do some freelancing, whatever your expertise is. There are all kinds of freelancing websites out there, and there's really no reason for anybody to be unemployed anymore. So think about starting that business, and doing some freelance work, and also, of course, looking for a job. That W-2 income, the lenders do like it, they're going to want income to give you a mortgage. Now, you might have investment income or other income that I don't know about, but generally speaking, it's going to be income you need to qualify. And their ultimate bargain says that. And yeah, and you could do seller finance property. Yeah. By the way, I love how you guys act as a community and answer each other's questions. So that's totally awesome. And Jason Keys, a buddy of mine from LA who's thinking about leaving the Socialist Republic of California, says Trump 2020. All right, Jason. Okay, and David Nelson, our client, says Trump 2020, good job. Socialism does suck. It's an absolute disaster every time and everywhere it's been tried, everywhere in the world, and every time in history, it is a disaster. And Steven says Trump, and Keith says he's voting for my dog Coco. Hey, thanks, Keith. Keith is probably voting for Bitcoin and Coco, I bet, and real estate, obviously, because Keith is a great client of ours. So Jason says, we really don't want to live in a socialist country. Many Americans escape places. Yeah, they sure did. Yeah, and you know what's interesting is you look at Miami, right? I live 90 miles north of Miami here in Palm Beach, something like that. And you look at Miami, and it's interesting. It's democratic. A lot of it is democratic, but a lot of those people are Cubans. Okay, and they came from the disaster known as Cuba. Now, I've been to Cuba, and I was going to take a trip there for our Venture Alliance Mastermind last year, but they closed all the ports and stopped the cruise ships. We had a whole cruise planned, and it's an absolute disaster. I mean, Cubans live in slums. Okay, doctors in Cuba. We went to. I went with Young Entrepreneurs Organization, now called Entrepreneurs Organization, because hey, the members aren't so young anymore. On a special trip where we chartered a jet from Miami, a big commercial jet, and it was all our plane. And We went to Cuba. I think there were like 100 and some odd, maybe 150 of us on that trip, and we had all sorts of like VIP things. We uh, had lectures from it's called the U.S. Interest Department, because we don't have an embassy there, but I think it's called the U.S. Interest Department. So that's kind of like a sort of a junior embassy in Cuba. And then we went to a biotech lab, and some of the doctors spoke to us from the biotech lab there. And they make $10 a month, these high-end doctors in Cuba. And you go around the streets, and yeah, there's these cool old houses, but there's just like trash all over the place, and it's absolutely unbelievable. Totally oppressive system. Jason, you are absolutely right. The Cubans in Miami, they get it. They don't want to move toward any kind of socialism or communism, because in 1959, when Castro took over, it's just been a disaster ever since. In fact, one of the interesting things about Cuba, this is the last part of my tangent, is you go to that place and you see all of these beautiful buildings that were the pre-communist era buildings with gorgeous architecture, really just super cool buildings. And you think to yourself, wow, in the 40s and the 50s, this must have been the playground of, celebrities. And you could just see the Rat Pack there, Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and the whole bunch of them, right? Hanging out in Cuba, having a great time. And that must have just been like the coolest place, right? And then you see all these buildings with this awesome architecture. And then next to one of them, you see a building that had to be rebuilt. And it's this communist era gray square block concrete piece of junk. It looks like a prison building. And just put up for completely utilitarian purposes with no aesthetic one whatsoever, nothing to inspire you. If you've followed my work for any length of time, I always say that the most important art form in the world is architecture, because architecture we live in it, right? It influences everything. It influences our mood. Then I'd say the second most important art form is music. There's that old saying by I think it's Baron Rothschild, the founders of the central bank and the Rothschild family, and that the big banking cartel that may be worth trillions of dollars. Nobody even knows their net worth. The Rothschild family, behind a lot of conspiracy theories. He said, "Let something to." I'm gonna ruin this quote, but something along the lines of, "Let me control the money of a country, and I care not who makes the laws." And that is a great quote. It certainly is. But I would say, here's the Hartman quote. I'm going to do a Joe Biden on you here. I'm going to steal someone else's quote and make it my own, but I will actually modify it. Okay, let me control the music, and I care not who controls the money or the laws, because the music influences people so heavily, right? If you look at all these revolutions that have gone on through time, it's about the music. The music is one of the huge shifts in the culture. Look at what happened in the US in the 60s with the music, and there you go, right? Okay, so let's get some more. Eric says Trump 2020. Boy, did all the Joe Biden people hang up and say, screw this Hartman guy? Maybe they did. I haven't seen a Biden voter on here yet, but come on, hey, don't be shy, Biden voters. We love you too. All right. Okay. What are seller financed houses? That just simply means that the seller of the property is going to carry a note and finance the property for the buyer, right? So instead of taking a lump sum and getting cashed out of the deal, they will essentially become the lender and allow you to pay them slowly on what's called an installment sale, and that's seller financing. And this is done somewhat frequently. Seller financing is certainly a possibility, but again, it's very hard to find. Because you really have to have a property where the seller owns the property free and clear so they can finance it for you, or you can do what's called a wraparound mortgage or an AITD, which means an all-inclusive trust deed. Way too complex to go into now, but it answers your question about seller financing. Okay, Ron says, I named my daughter Dagny after Atlas Shrugged. I love it. Yay. That's awesome. That is awesome. Yes, Atlas Shrugged, one of the great books that had a huge impact on my life. Ron, I have a question for you. And if any of you know the answer or the reference in what I'm about to say, comment below. Comment below, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. Comment on this. Here is the question of the day. Who is John Galt? Who is John Galt? There you go. Comment below if you know what that means. All right. Not voting. Both parties are socialists. Well, Daniel, I do agree with you. I mean, listen, everything has moved to the left. Even the Republicans, the folks who say they're on the right of the side of the political aisle, they've moved to the left too. I totally agree. Okay. But it's a matter of degree. It's a spectrum, right? So, you should vote, and you should go vote for the right side of the political aisle. So someone drive him to the polls, okay, and help him vote. Okay, JoJo for president. Who's JoJo? Media control should have 3 to 5 candidates throughout. Yes, I totally agree with you. We should have runoff elections. We should have a ton of candidates. We should not have a two-party system. It's a total scam. But folks, we have what we have. Okay, we have what we have. You got to operate within those parameters. We have what we have. So go vote for Trump. Not that you love Trump, okay, and maybe you do, and that's fine, but just that it's better than the alternative. Okay. All right. You're just talking to each other here, so that's good. Okay, Laguna Hills, California, 2 votes for Trump in my house, 0 for Biden. All right. I had a good job. That's awesome. Okay, Jim says, Jason, what are your feelings on the United States position in the global economy? The last 4 years under Donald Trump, it appears that we've pulled back as leader from the world stage. Do you feel that leaves the door open for the US dollar to be replaced as the world standard? What you really mean there is as the world reserve currency. Jim, that is a good, thoughtful question, which I very much appreciate. But I don't think you should worry about that. And why? Well, many reasons. Number one is compared to what? What other country or what other currency would take over as the reserve currency of the world if it wasn't the dollar? What would it be? Okay, let's think about it. Would it be the Brazilian real, the yen, the euro, the ruble? What would it be? The peso? One of the pesos for one of the peso countries? No. There's no other choice, okay? The dollar will continue to be the reserve currency of the world for a long, long time. And at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, it all comes down to military power. And America has far and away the most powerful military the human race has ever known. And we have the most powerful central bank, like it or not. I don't like having a central bank. I think there shouldn't be a central bank. I think the market should just set the value of the currency. Okay. It should just be a free market. But we have what we have, right? We have a central bank, the Federal Reserve. And, with a standing army the size of ours, and what is it, 12 aircraft carriers, and, thousands of missiles. Look, folks, it's just, there's not going to be a change anytime soon. Probably not in our lifetime. All right. Olaf. Yeah, but the market with the seller goofy plan. Yeah, it's going to be really hard to find a seller finance deal nowadays when the market is so hot and they can just get cashed out, and they've got to have the equity to do the seller financing, right? So, can you drop that link into the chat? Okay, so that was the Joe Biden video. I told you the name of it. I'll try and remember to do that, but I can't make a promise on that, okay? Because I got to go actually find the video on YouTube, okay? Okay, man, watching those old Biden videos, pure comedy. Yeah, they are. Yes, they are. Okay. Why doesn't the media play the videos? Well, the media has a vested interest in a Biden-Harris administration because the media has the luxury of being liberal. Most of the rest of the country and the world doesn't. Um, Remember, the media views themselves as the elite, okay? And socialism and liberalism and communism is a great deal for the elite class. I mean, listen, let's take the most extreme example. Let's take North Korea, the hermit regime, the most fascinating country on earth, and Cuba being the second most fascinating country on earth. I would really love to go to North Korea. I just think it would be super fascinating, but I'm scared to go. They take in about 4,000 tourists a year, which is an amazingly small number. And But let me tell you, the day North Korea opens up, I'm on a plane because I can't wait to visit North Korea. It's just like it's the closest you can get to an alien culture on another planet. Okay, I mean North Korea is just the most exotic place, right? Uh, anyway, what was I saying about that though? So take that example, right? Do you think communism in North Korea is a bad deal for Kim Jong Un and the Kim family? No, it's a great deal for them. Do you think communism was a bad deal for Vladimir Lenin or Joseph Stalin? Do you think socialism was a bad deal for Adolf Hitler, the National Socialist Party? People tend to forget that. I know a lot of people say it wasn't really socialist, the Nazis. Yeah, well, yeah, it's another debate for another day. Do you think communism is a bad deal or was a bad deal for Fidel Castro and his brother, the other Castro now? What's his name? I don't know. I can't remember his name. So the other Castro, communism is a great deal for these people. Communism is a great deal for the elites, and socialism and communism are just a little bit apart on the spectrum. They're the same basic concept, right? Remember when Comrade Obama was president? And Nancy Pelosi, you never see this in the mainstream media, but there were all those articles and all those stories of her flying around on, the military jets and going from Washington D.C. back to her home in the Socialist Republic of San Francisco, and the bar bills and the gluttony and the entertainment and the just flying around and abusing the taxpayers with her consumption. Isn't it interesting how little Trump has done that compared to Obama, by the way? Trump has not taken all these tourist trips in Air Force One with this cadre of 300 people that have to go. They have to bring the presidential limousine and all this stuff. He hasn't abused the country and the taxpayer like that. But Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama, they were just running up the bill. They were just loving life, living like kings and queens and modern dictators on the taxpayers' money. Communism and socialism are a great deal for the elite class, the people at the top. Don't forget it. It's a great deal for them. Why would they ever want to change it? And the media considers themselves part of that elite class. Okay, so you're just talking to each other. Okay, my family who come from Venezuela and live in Australia and have lived in Australia, Spain, England, France, and Chile would all vote for Trump if they were Americans. We know that socialism, we know what socialism can do to a nation. Our remaining relatives in Venezuela think Americans are foolish for entertaining socialism ideas. Yeah, folks, you have it right there. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that and for sharing that message. Central planning is a disaster of epic proportions. It fails every time it's tried throughout history and everywhere it's tried in the world. Okay, so yeah, and Sunshine Girl says, Dan, if Trump were making those false claims about multiple college degrees, they would be all over him. Yes, they certainly would. Okay, Biden is a bad candidate, but Trump is downplaying COVID and holding 3 super spreader events per day. Well, we'll see. We'll see how bad that is. I mean, we'll see if the COVID thing is overplayed or not. That's a big argument, and I don't think we know the answer. I don't think you know. I don't think any of us know. I think that's still up for grabs. That one. Okay. The map looks like cell phone coverage. Yeah, that's funny. That's a funny comparison. I love it. Okay. Tax loophole. Okay. I got to go fast through these folks. So if you're talking to each other, I'm pretty much going to just jump to the next thing. Okay. I like Trump avoid taxes. Who doesn't? Yeah, yeah. Very unfair. Inflation plus tenant plus low interest rates locked in for 30 years is a massive opportunity, which is why people are buying property. Yeah. They won't join the haves. Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. No, it's a fantastic formula. It really is. Okay, Kenneth, even if you tell people that these Democrats, Joe Biden and Emma, are ripping them off and selling out corporations, okay, sooner or later they'll get it. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for anybody, Kenneth, to ever see things clearly when their own self interest is at stake. Uh, look at people are self-interested. That we just have to go into every deal, every business deal, every romantic relationship, every political scenario with the idea that everybody is self-interested. And that's not so bad, right? It's not so bad because out of that self-interest comes a lot of progress. And if you read Ayn Rand or Milton Friedman, another brilliant author, Milton Friedman. I mean, wow, Milton Friedman was so right on. Just everybody does things out of their self interest in capitalist countries and in communist countries. There's this great clip you can look up where Donahue, the old talk show host, I remember when I was a kid, Donahue, he is interviewing Milton Friedman, and he says, well, capitalism, I mean, it's all based on greed, and people are so greedy. And Milton Friedman responds, lickety split with his super sharp mind, and he says, you don't think there's greed in communist countries? What makes you think those people aren't greedy? And of course, like I just mentioned, the elite class, they're always greedy. They're stealing from the population and they're living like kings and queens. I mean, there's greed everywhere. It's just part of human nature. Okay. But why not incentivize the greed with something that does some good for the world and humanity and creates some progress, right? So, it's just channeling the greed, right? Maybe New York is liberal, but Fox, Trump, okay, yeah, I know. Yes, everybody's got their own propaganda. Fox, the Communist News Network, CNN. I know, I get it. Okay. I mean, I'm just not going to argue about this stuff because it's fine. That's the only one. Yes, Fox is the only one in the mainstream. And, a lot of people think Fox is really a shill for the left. They present things as a from like it is a conservative viewpoint, but there's this concept called controlled opposition where you intentionally have your opposition present things in a weak manner or in a manner that isn't convincing because there's going to be opposition anyway. But if you create your own controlled opposition, the people that run the world like George Soros, okay, they play this game, so just be conscious of it. Okay, tax fraud is a federal crime. The middle class can't commit tax fraud because they are W 2 employees and therefore paying the lion's share of the taxes. Yeah, well, are you saying Trump committed tax fraud? No, he didn't. He just used the system. Okay, he used the system and it did what the IRS incentivized him to do: provide housing. That's the great thing about real estate. And yeah, it's unfair. W 2 people are taxed at the highest rate. So get out of that game as soon as you can and buy some property. So, can't beat them, join them, right? That's the old saying. Okay, Republicans and Democrats have looted this country out to the point. Yep, I know. I agree. But we have what we have, folks. So that's the way it is. Neither party is perfect, and we shouldn't have a two-party system. It's a scam. But we have what we have, and it's a spectrum, and it's just it's a shade of gray, 50 shades of gray, folks. Okay, the rich don't pay taxes because it's not a democracy system. It's a plutocracy of the rich. Yeah, I agree. We do have a bit of a plutocracy. So, folks, again, don't curse the darkness because you're not going to change it. Light a candle and brighten your corner of the universe. Align your interest with these incredibly powerful forces, governments and central banks, in essence, the wealthy and the powerful elites, and do what they're incentivizing you to do. Buy income property, provide housing, take advantage of these tax breaks yourself, okay? And align your interest in their interest, which is inflationary. Okay, hello from Hood River, Oregon. The Pacific Northwest is so beautiful. Love it up there. Okay, I look forward to your podcast. I can say I don't think much about voting in the past until I opened my business and all the money was being taken out in taxes. Hey, Omar, congratulations. You've come around, and I want to just say hooray to you for realizing this, because it is so important. You very seldom find a business owner who is a Democrat, because they get it. It's like Winston Churchill said, that old saying, right? If you're under 30 and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. If you're over 30 and you're not a conservative, you don't have a brain. Okay, and we all, when we get some real world experience, we mature and we grow up, and we see how ineffective central planning is. We see how ineffective big government is, and we see how effective it is to let the people keep more of their money and let the people make the decisions that will move the economy and the human race forward and provide a better standard of living for everybody. Yes, it actually does trickle down. Trickle down economics does work. It's certainly not perfect. You can find tons of flaws with it. It's not perfect. It's just like Winston Churchill again. I think he was the one who said it. Capitalism isn't perfect. It's just better than everything else. Okay, it's certainly not perfect. I will not say for a moment it's perfect. Okay, well, I'm going to paraphrase your saying. Okay, folks, come on, watch the typos here. Okay, uh, who are going to bail out the numb if it collapses and the government turns to hyperinflation? Trump would quit and hand it over to the Democrats. No, Trump's not going to quit and hand it over to the Democrats. Come on. But yeah, we do have a lot of inflationary pressures building up in the system. No question about it. Capitalism, the private sector way. Yes. Okay. Omar. Okay. You're just talking to each other. Hi, Omar. Do you have a CPA? Okay. Okay. You're just talking to each other. I got to skip past these folks. Call Elon. Yes, Jason, please call Elon Musk today and tell him to make a Tesla leaf blower. That would be a good service to humanity. And David says, and David again, Trump 2020, socialism sucks. Yes, it does. Absolutely. Okay, so the seller financing, yeah, that's not going to be easy to find, but it can be done. It can be done. Okay, so now there are a lot of people supporting their money. Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Okay, correct. Sorry, I'm getting my voices, so I'm just reading. You can read on the screen, folks, too. Leaf blower lobby is too strong. Yes, it is. We got to get rid of that leaf blower lobby, Keith. Absolutely. Just created 6. I don't know what that means. Okay, so even Warren Buffett and Dolly are getting out of the stock market and buying real estate. Yes, well, that's absolutely good advice. I agree. Income property is the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. Book club now. Yes, get that Taleb book, Skin in the Game. It's fantastic. Okay. And Google the Redfin lawsuit. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting case. So I look forward to diving into that with you. We'll probably do that next week. Okay. If you want to be allowed to own, don't for Biden. Yep, absolutely. Libertarian is the only honest way to run the world, is the libertarian way, to have the smallest possible government, just a few government services, small number, let the private sector fulfill most of the needs of society. Absolutely the way to go, but it doesn't always work. There are definitely flaws in the libertarian philosophy too. One that bothers me to no end is privatized prisons. And I was in favor of that when I first heard the concept back in the 90s, but the privatized prison system is an absolute disaster. There should not be a profit motive for taking away people's freedom, and there should not be a profit motive for war, for dropping bombs on people. You got to get the profit motive out of those things somehow. Okay. And there will always be power hungry people who aren't motivated by profit, but by power. And then there'll be some cronyism backdoor deal like Joe Biden. Hey, if we build this prison in your district, will you give my son a job, and pay him, $2 million a year if we go with your prison company for to construct the government run prisons. Even if the government runs them, there'll still be backdoor deals, there'll still be cronyism, there'll still be Bidenism. Certainly, that's just the way it is. But the smaller the government, the smaller the problem. The corruption and cronyism will always exist. It's part of human nature. Just shrink the size of government and you shrink the problem. It's just a proportional thing. Yep. Amen, Sunshine Girl. I agree. Okay. Johnny was the best. I don't know what you're talking about there, but okay. Trump Presidente. Yes, Ricardo. Okay. And not a peep from the mainstream media on this. Yeah, Bill, the mainstream media won't show those videos I just showed you. In fact, I'm surprised Google and YouTube haven't taken them down. And George Gammon. All right, George, who's been on my show many times. Great guy, has a great YouTube channel. George is an awesome teacher. Thank you for the compliment, George. This guy Hartman really knows his stuff. Thanks. And George Gammon is in the house. Yeah, absolutely. And George Gammon, Joel says, big fan of both of us. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. And yes, good. George is a great guy. Mobile home parks. Yeah, I own a mobile home park, and I think that's a great asset class. I really like them. They're hard to find. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of complexity. Just remember, if you buy an apartment building, I've owned two big apartment complexes, well over 100 units each. And I do have a mobile home park now that I own with one of our clients. And let me tell you, it is complicated. It's not like owning a bunch of single family houses. That's like running a business. Okay. So you can make money in it. And I made a lot of money in it, but it's complicated. Okay. So that's it. Marxists don't see that as an argument. Yeah, late stage capitalism. That's good. George is so insightful all the time. So good insight there as well. And yeah, sadly, the Marxist they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to have anything to do with critical thinking or logic or what's best for society. They just want what's best for them. And RV parks are different than mobile home parks. An RV park is where you rent night by night, where people just pull in with their RVs, they hook up, and then they go. Mobile home park is where they stay. My park is a blend. We do have a few RV spaces, but most of it is more permanent mobile home parks. RV parks are even more like running a business. So that even requires more attention. Mobile home park requires a lot of attention, a lot more than single family homes. And apartments require a lot more attention. Just keep in mind, with these things, an apartment complex, a mobile home park, and certainly an RV park, you are running a business versus an investment. Okay. Buying a bunch of single family homes, that can be treated more like an investment, requires much less active involvement. The other things you've mentioned require much more active attention, more like a business. And if you can do it and dedicate the time, you can certainly make money. Yes, China made that argument. I think you're talking to George Gammon there. And now I lost my place. Where were we, folks? Oh, doggone it. We got to wrap up here, folks, in a minute. So I'm going to say goodbye, but I'm going to try and get through some more of these questions if I can find my place. This is so annoying, this software that does not keep her place. Oh, hey, here's my friend Julia. Hi, Julia. How are you? I haven't talked to you in a long time. Seller financing, not complicated at all. Yes, Julia is a fantastic tax lien investor and real estate investor friend of mine. And I agree, it's not super complicated. It's just hard to find those deals. It's not like you can shop for them on the MLS or at jasonhartman.com. So they're more creative. They take more attention, but you can certainly do them. And Julia can help you with that. So she's a great asset for that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we got that one. And Bitcoin. There's another Bitcoin fan. There's a lot of you guys out there. Okay, Biden likes minors. BLM. Oh, that's hilarious. Sad at the same time, but yeah, hilarious. BLM means Biden likes minors. There you go. Pedophile. Yeah. Oh my gosh. The yuan will not be the reserve currency. If that's what you're saying, Jim, I do not think that's going to happen. Okay, I like this guy. Not sure what guy you're talking about. Hopefully, it's about me. Pelosi, Hillary, and the rest of one-way ticket to an active volcano. Yeah. Okay, and you're just talking to Olaf. If Biden wins, I understand rates probably won't rise very quickly, but with all the regulations qualifying for a loan changed, yeah, I don't know. We'll see, Andrew. That's let's just hope Biden doesn't win. Okay, we'll put it that way. But hey, if he does, we could. I made a lot of money under Comrade Obama. Okay, because remember, Democrats are more inflationary than Republicans, although both of them are inflationary. Don't. It's not the end of the world if Biden does win. It's not the end of the world, folks. We just got to adjust our strategy, and that's what our Wednesday live stream and our Wednesday podcast will be all about. Okay. Okay. So, yep. Yep. Okay. Trump 2020. Okay. You're just talking to each other here. Biden wins, I will qualify for. Yeah, if Biden wins, it might make qualifying for loans more difficult. You're sort of hearkening back, I think, to Dodd-Frank, which was the Bernie Frank, Christopher Dodd, big, 2,200 page or whatever it was bill that regulated the lending industry and made it much harder to qualify for loans. I think too hard. They overcorrected, and so I don't know. We'll see. Too early to tell. I just don't know, but it's possible. Okay, secession and rebellion. Yeah, I do think I predicted that 15, 20 years ago that during our natural lifetime we'll see states secede from the union. Okay, you're just talking to each other. I love how all you guys are becoming friends here when we do these live streams. It's totally awesome. Absolutely. Let's jail them forever. Yes, I agree. Life sentence for jaywalking. Yeah. Okay. Clay Slocum. Hey, Clay Slocum. Welcome. It's good to see you here. Clay Slocum is a client of ours from many years ago, and he's been investing with us for quite a while. And he actually saw George Gammon on his YouTube channel talking about me and said, Jason, you got to check this guy out. He's talking about you. And so thanks for the introduction, Clay. That was really great of you to do that. Thank you so much because George has become a great friend, and we really love having him as a guest on the show. So question, are you overall in favor of cryptocurrencies and smart contracts? That's part of a cryptocurrency feature working into real estate transactions. Sure, I'm in favor of it. I just don't think that any of the cryptocurrencies that exist today will be the ones that ultimately win the game. I think the cryptocurrency that wins the game will be the one that is sponsored by the two most powerful entities the human race has ever known: governments and central banks with standing armies. And when there is a digital dollar that sadly, I listen, I would love to be wrong about this. I would love to have nothing more than see Bitcoin take over the world. I would love that. A decentralized cryptocurrency and maybe some others as well. But like Keith, who is watching, like Keith taught me, Bitcoin is in a class by itself. No other currency is like Bitcoin. It is completely in its own league. And if you're going to invest in cryptocurrencies, which I am not a cryptocurrency fan, well, I'm a fan of the idea. I just am not a big investor in them because, again, I think I'm too concerned about the powers that be shutting it down or manipulating it and making it difficult. But I would love to be wrong about that. Okay, I would love to see Bitcoin take over the world. So, and yes, there will be a lot more blockchain and smart contracts in not just real estate transactions, but every type of transaction. And if you want to check out my podcast called The CryptoCast, I have covered that a lot more, interviewed many industry experts on that, and check that out. But of course, the main show is the Creating Wealth Show. Okay. Thank you, Clay, for that. You want to go in on a prison. Yeah, prisons are good investments because you can artificially fill your vacancies, not like in your own properties, right? But no, I do not want to be part of imprisoning people for profit. I can earn my money in a much more decent way than that. But yes, I get the sentiment completely. Okay, great job. Thanks for spending some time with us. Hey, thank you for spending the time too. Um, I don't know what that means, President. I don't know what that means. Okay, so when buying real estate, think about putting it in your children's names. Hey, folks, our asset protection along the bottom there. Yes, you've got to listen to that webinar. jasonhartman.com/protect for strategies on this stuff. It's really, really important. jasonhartman.com/protect. It's a free webinar. Go check that out. It will teach you a lot of good stuff. And that URL is scrolling along the bottom of your screen, jasonhartman.com/protect. And Sunshine Girl has some advice there. And yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, I'm here and we can start now. Well, Ryan, you're late to the party, so you're going to have to watch mostly the replay, but I'm glad you're here. Okay, so research. Oh, yeah, the CRT, the Charitable Remainder Trust, that is a vehicle. But again, that requires real charitable intent, which is certainly not bad. But remember, most charities are bureaucratic organizations wasting your money. And doesn't go to the cause enough, but that certainly is a vehicle. But remember, you actually are donating the property if you use the Charitable Remainder Trust. And again, I'm not a tax or legal expert, but do check out the webinar for some really good ideas on reducing your taxes, protecting your assets, and planning your estate. jasonhartman.com/protect. Okay. And Sunshine Girl and Rhino. Oh, is that a crypto? I think that's a cryptocurrency, and it's a tokenization platform. Yeah, I don't know about that one, but it sounds good. So or maybe the only one at the moment. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So good stuff. Okay, folks, I gotta run. It's been 2 hours and 11 minutes with you today, but let's end with this. Okay, let me find it. And we will end with a little more fun here. Let me find it. Because it's just too much fun, and we got to have a little levity here and a little fun going on. So let's end with this, and we can end with a little dancing here to end our time together today. All right, what do you think? You ready? Here we go.
And we will make America great again. Thank you, Ohio. Get out and vote. Thank you, Florida. Thank you, Florida. Walk away from the hate. We're all human. And we don't segregate, just like women. I'll make America great. We are all in this together. Colors of red, white, and blue, and they stand for every one of you. And together, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make America great. Woo! Everybody sing M-A-G-A. M-A-G-A. Let them hear our voice, all you girls and boys. Stand up and make some noise. M-A-G-A. M-A-G-A. The American crowd, patriotic and proud. Shout it out loud. That's why when it comes time to vote, just remember we're all in the same boat. We're together. We're united, folks, and we won't let them divide us. Now and walk away from the hate. We're all human, and we don't segregate, just like women. I'll make America great. We are all in this together. Everybody sing M-A-G-A. Shout it out loud.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I will see you on the podcast tomorrow on the Creating Wealth Show. And then on the live stream, we may have an impromptu live stream on Tuesday on Election Day. So be sure to hit the bell notification on YouTube so you'll be notified. And we will definitely see you Wednesday for a special election recap live stream, Wednesday at 5 o'clock Pacific and 8 o'clock Eastern. God, I had to think about that for a moment. What's wrong with me? It's been too long. Okay, folks, go out and vote on Tuesday or before. Vote early and vote often. You know, that's what they used to say in Chicago, right? And thanks so much for joining me today. And we will talk to you next time. Until then, happy investing. Bye.